You're now tuned into our discussion segment, the front page, focusing on the Reach Road Rehabilitation Programme. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced a $3 billion Reach Road Rehabilitation Programme. It's a national initiative to address critical road infrastructure needs across the country. The programme will allocate funds to each of the 63 constituencies for essential road repairs and maintenance, focusing on damage from recent weather events to include Hurricane Beryl and routine maintenance. The program will be executed in 2 phases. Phase 1 will run from September to November this year, and Phase 2 from January to March 2025. For more, we're now being joined by the Minister with Responsibility for Works, Robert Morgan. Good morning to you.
Oh, still trying to get him.
All right, still trying to make contact with Mr. Morgan to find out if it is that the allocations will be made with equity or allocated based on how many roads might be damaged in one constituency versus the other, or will the portion of money be equally shared across all 63 constituencies? To find out from him how the funds will be allocated and how the works will be done, what will be done in phase 1 versus what will be done next year for the 3 months, January to March. And to find out as well, to George, if this at all will impact the commitment to start the Spark program in October.
Yeah, how it reconciles with all that. Yeah. So the minister in charge of transport, Vaz, he told us moments ago at the top of the hour at 7 that the number of buses that the JUTC rolled out in the corporate area this morning, 270, 170, which I guess it's the 170 best other buses he had, plus the 100 new ones. So 270. Last school year, they rolled out about 400, but a lot of that, the opposition really dug in, or Michael Phillips had a ball because he was saying more than half of the fleet was not fit for purpose. Broke down old bus, which stopped at road with people, as people say, left people a road. Yeah, so those buses, the minister and the JUTC now have the chance to leave those back in the shed and just roll out the best of the fleet that was there before, along with this 100, 270. Now, scheduling becomes a critical issue. The issue with scheduling, though, on our streets, which are jam-packed, does a schedule even make sense? Does a schedule even work? I guess if it is that the bus is to pick you up at 6:15, then yes, because clearly the traffic situation at 6:15 is not the same as 7:30 or even 8 o'clock. So one would like to see the JUTC schedule, and then for the at least the first 2 weeks to test the practicality of that schedule, because I can imagine being a commuter, and we all remember our days as commuters. In fact, perhaps the worst phase of life was when I had to take public transport. Jesus Christ, I truly don't know. Yeah, it was demeaning. It was you left your yard, your beard, you put on your nice cologne, your good clothes, and when you're done, and it's not like people intentionally soiled you up, but it's just the very nature of
the
trying
rush.
to hag on good business, and
Yeah.
and then as schoolboys, I don't know, there's something about the interaction between adult men and schoolboys on buses. Them not feel like say you're near them none at all, and it's not like you want to be near them, but you're forced by circumstances. And the worst violence is threatened upon you as a schoolboy. It's a daunting process.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, man. So the scheduling for the buses has to be practical, making account for the realities on the nation's streets in terms of the traffic flow and everything else. So that's something that we'd want to get from the JUTC later on this week, when they've had a few days to see how the flow of buses is working on the streets. Who do we have now? Minister Morgan is here. Morning, sir.
Hi, good morning, George. This morning.
You left us at the altar. Tawna is here as ever present.
You never trimmed the lamp.
Not at all. Tell us about this Reach program now. Tawna had some questions, which are the important questions at this time, Tawna.
Yeah, we're hearing $3 billion across all 63 constituencies. If that money will be shared up equally across all 63, or how will the funds be allocated?
So, not all constituencies are the same size, and not all constituencies have the same road density. So, yes, there will be equitable distribution based on need. And you do remember that there are also community roads and main roads. So that has to be taken into consideration as well. So we are looking at the formulation and we shortly announce how it will be done in terms of the equitable distribution, as was said in the press release.
And when you say there are some main roads and some community roads, so Reach will cover both?
Well, we have to. Burial did damage both main roads and community roads. And I'm sure if you drive around the country, you will see where the hurricane did do some damage to several of our main roads, as well as community roads, which impact directly the citizens and their ability to do commerce and traverse, to do other things.
Minister Morgan?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Right. So I was saying that the hurricane did impact both community roads and the main roads, and we have to look at both of them as they both have impacts on the economy and the safety of our citizens as well.
Mm-hmm. Your press release also said that you're doing the repairs are to be done in 2 phases. Has it yet been decided as well what goes in phase 1 versus what goes in phase 2?
Well, 2 phases because we do not believe that we'll be able to do all of it in the short term. So phase 1 will essentially be September to November, while phase 2 will be January to March. Because of the procurement process, we have to stick within the ambits of the procurement process, as well as the ability to carry out the work and the ability to get the necessary contractors to carry out the work. We had to do it in phases rather than do it at the same time.
And how does this, I'm thinking about the Spark program as well. You did make a commitment to start the Spark program in October. Does Reach at all impact the start of that program, and how does the two work?
Well, the Spark program is a totally different program. The Spark program is a total rehabilitation of a road, while the Reach program is essentially patching. So, for example, with the Spark program, we will be, let's say, for example, you have a road that needs to be repaired. It will be total rehabilitation, including the installation of water pipes, the fixing of culverts, the creation of drainage, and so on. While the Reach program is essentially a patching program where it is providing respite to persons and to citizens who use particular roads based on the damage. The Spark program will not fix every road, right? So there still be roads that the Spark program doesn't touch, and the Reach program might help to fill that gap. You said that the Spark program is supposed to start in October. The Spark program has already started in the sense that we are now in the administrative phase of it. We just closed the tender process where we had tenders from different companies. We've also recently, probably about in August, did about 61 consultations, 61 constituencies. Some of them had more than one consultation, but we had 61 constituencies, and so far we have had submissions of almost 500 roads, and we're currently doing our technical analysis and scoping of some of those roads, including about 61 or about 60 main roads as well. So Spark actually has started.
Well, Minister Morgan, I meant getting the equipment on the road. That's what I meant. Okay. There was that commitment to have the equipment rolling out on our roads to get them fixed in October. So you're still sticking to that timeline?
Well, we're really working really hard at it. The National Works Agency, I meet with them every week to update them on Spark. The Prime Minister is very committed to it. There are many moving parts that need to be managed at the same time. For example, we need to reach to the Public Investment Management Committee with the studies to get the approval from the Ministry of Finance so that the funds can be released. we need to also select the enterprise contractors for each of the 4 packages, as well as the engineering consultants who will oversee the works that are to be done. That has to be done concurrently, and then we have to go through the general procurement process, which is the Public Procurement Commission, Infrastructure Committee, and Cabinet. We're really rushing to try and get it started by the latest, the end of October. But I hope that if I don't make the end of October, you won't punish me too harshly, because this is the first time that we have actually been so far down the wicket with a procurement of $40 billion, which we have been trying to do within a 6-month period. Usually it takes 18 months to do it, and we're almost at we're about at 80% of that process now. But my hope is that I can start with the latest, late October, November, thereabouts.
We are speaking with the Minister of, man in charge of Works, Minister of Works, yes, Robert Morgan, and he's updating us on the Reach, let's call it the Reach initiative, or the Reach program, if you may, and it is to conduct repairs to roadworks, repairs to road surfaces across the country in the immediate term. He says it's different from the Spark program. He says Spark envisages a lot of support structures to make the road repairs more long-lasting. So the drains and culverts and sidewalk and verges, all of that have to be in order, and then the road work is done. He says that's what Spark intends to do. He says Reach is to fix things, fix road surfaces that are in need of repair right now, patching and so forth. So with that distinction, Minister, here's the thing. Why is it that Spark, the roadwork aspect of it, the main roadwork part, and not the roadwork part, and not the other support facilities, why was that not fast tracked and the funds committed to it, rather than creating something new that will have an administrative side that could cause delays in the works actually being done?
So, because of the size of Spark, it requires a very involved process. So, for example, I want to fix Barbican Road. Barbican Road is, let's say, 2 kilometers. And I want to patch Barbican Road. It's very easy. It probably is going to cost me $19 million to patch Barbican Road. It's a very easy procurement process because I'm only spending $19 million. If I want to fix all the 10 main roads in Kingston, and I'm going to have to rip them up and resurface them and put in pipes and put in new culverts which may have been damaged, put in new side drains, cross drains which may have been damaged, that may cost me $1 billion. That procurement process is totally different, because with the Reach program, this is not necessarily capital expenditure. It's actually maintenance. Capital expenditure is new expenditure that has to go through a totally different process based on our public accountability framework.
Yes.
But with maintenance, that can come out of the regular budget of the National Works Agency, where it doesn't have to go through the public procurement, the Public Investment Management Committee, and no studies have to be done. We don't have to design a road and so on. So we have fast-track Spark based on the procurement process.
Yeah. And you partially answered the question I was asking, because I was saying, where is the $3 billion coming from to fund Reach?
Well, the Ministry of Finance will be giving us the allocation.
Taken from where?
From the consolidated funds.
But based on your explanation just now, it would sound, and of course I'm not contradicting it because you would know, but I'm saying you made it seem as if there was a maintenance contingency for these kind of repairs. Because what I'm trying to get at is this: I don't want to hear a week or two from now that the access to the funds under Reach is tied up in the usual procurement bureaucracy that attends to works of this nature and of this scope. So I wanted to get an idea, for the benefit of the listeners, of where the funds are coming from, and if the pass-through of those funds would be encumbered by any of the usual bureaucracy.
So the National Works Agency has funding to extend in different ways. You have the recurrent expenditure, which deals with routine maintenance, and we get a set amount of funding annually for that. Plus, you have capital projects, which pretty much goes through the Ministry of Economic Growth and the Ministry of Finance, which is essentially spark. For this for this Reach program, the Ministry of Finance, I would have met with the Minister of Finance recently, as well as some of its technocrats, and we had discussions as to the best approach based on the urgent need. And the commitment was made that the funds will be quickly sent over through the Ministry of Economic Growth to the National Works Agency so we can start the patching. We wanted actually to start the patching before September, but based on the technicalities of it and trying to not breach any guidelines, we had to look at a formula where we could do it. So we're expecting to start it in this month. But I'm committed to it. The Minister of Finance is committed to it, as well as the Prime Minister, who is the Minister of Works. I'm just the Minister with responsibility, without portfolio.
Lord of mercy. Mr. Morgan, please. So, all right. So let's draw an MP at random. Say the Member of Parliament for Southwest Clarendon. Does he, at this point, on this day in sports at 7:40 a.m., does he know the route to take to get some of Reach for his constituency?
Well, the route is very simple. The commitment has been made by the government. We will be communicating to the MPs, as we customarily do, that, listen, there are some funds allocated for your particular constituency to patch certain roads. And the parish office will be working with you, and whichever contractor is qualified based on the procurement process to do that repair. And the MP will be consulted in that regard. We could never engage in such a large program without consulting with the members of Parliament on both sides of the aisle. So they can be assured that, yes, there is funds on its way to repair roads that primarily were damaged through burial.
So, and just to understand, Minister Morgan, so say, for example, you have a community road that's about to be patched now. Then that road will be done again during the Spark program?
There are 23,000 roads in Jamaica, both community and main roads. Community roads meaning RADA roads, parish council roads, and so on. And main roads meaning roads that, based on legislation, are controlled by the National Works Agency. Spark will not fix a significant portion of those, as you can imagine. That's a couple thousand kilometers of roads. Well, so there may be overlap, but there is also the need. The need is, and I'll use an example, Woods. Woods is one of the roads that the Spark program is thinking of fixing, but the damage that is being caused to persons, motor vehicles, as well as the delays, that significant deterioration of the road due to the hurricane and time caused, we had to do some work on it because it impacted Clarendon College, it impacted Edwin Allen, it impacted Claude McKay, Frank Field, and it's the main access route from Maypen to North Central Clarendon, North Clarendon, Northwest Clarendon, and in some cases, Cave Valley. So while we know that over time, Spark may fix this road within another 8 months, the people could not wait for 8 months. But there are other roads that Spark will not touch any at all, that Reach will touch. So it is about need, it's about urgency, it's about providing some level of support to persons who have been suffering because of the damage to roads, because of the impact that the damage is having, not only on their safety, but also on their pockets.
As night follows day, Minister, somebody next week, Monday at this time, will send a message to us to say a week after the announcement of Reach, they haven't seen any movement yet, and they don't know what share of the 3 billion pie they'll get in this constituency, in their constituency. How do you ensure that doesn't happen?
Before the end of the week, the schedule will be announced and the allocations will be made public. I'm going to be very transparent with it, because persons within constituencies need to be aware of what is going to be happening in their constituencies, and their representatives also need to be aware so they can communicate with the citizenry as to what share of this allocation
Yeah.
they'll be getting.
And on the point of the share, you're an MP, you know that an MP looks at, so I look at Tana's allocation and I say, I understand how she get that for her constituency and I have X number of roads. In terms of the formula, you've mentioned the formula several times so far in the interview. Will the MPs be consulted on the formula, or is it that a finance ministry responsibility, and then the formula will just deliver the allocations?
Well, there will be wide consultations. The Prime Minister is the leader of Cabinet, and that Cabinet will also have a discussion on it today, as well as we will be speaking to members of Parliament based on our proposal to hear their feedback as to what they think is appropriate. The fact is, the members of Parliament and the councillors are the ones on the ground. They know exactly what is happening. I don't know what is happening in each constituency, so I cannot make a autocratic decision about repairing roads in constituencies without consulting the councillors, the MPs, the National Works Agency, the parish managers, and so on. But there will be wide consultation, and before the end of the week, the public will know what we're going to do and when it's going to start, and the quantum that is going to go to whichever constituency in the various phases.
Hear you on that. You must by now have a constituency calculator. You just plug in the numbers and it delivers, because you've been doing this for some time. All right. Thank you for your time this morning, Minister. We look forward to reaching, and the clock is ticking. Tana, you expect that next Monday we'll be talking about somebody saying that, boy, I know the reach money in the reach. Yeah?
That's not for
let that not happen, Minister, with this one. All right?
Thank you very much, Tana. Thank you very much, George, for having me.
All right, then. That's the Minister in charge of Works, Robert Morgan, talking about the REACH initiative. $3 billion to be shared across the 63 constituencies, not dollar for dollar across the constituencies, because the reality in some constituencies much more stark than in others. Mm-hmm. And so by the end of the week, the amounts will be known, the share up will be known.
Share up will be known.
Yeah, and you know how much dumpling I get by Friday. All right? That's it.
Turning our attention now to the new academic year. The 2024-2025 academic year gets underway today, September 2, with mixed emotions across Jamaica, because while many students will eagerly return to the classrooms, some schools in St. Elizabeth and elsewhere will remain closed due to the ongoing repairs to the buildings that were impacted by Hurricane Beryl. In St. Elizabeth, approximately 10 schools remain closed due to extensive damage. Alternative arrangements have been made for affected students, with a temporary relocation to nearby schools or adjusted start dates. Meanwhile, other schools across the island are welcoming students back with enthusiasm. Teachers and administrators have been working tirelessly to prepare classrooms and implement new initiatives aimed at enhancing student performance. We're now being joined by the president of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica, NPTHA, Stuart Jacobs, for reaction. How's it looking, Mr. Jacobs?
Positive. We can't but be excited that we're yet beginning another school year, and for the most part, our schools are ready to accept our children, to add value to them, and by extension, our country. There are some concerns, and these are concerns that are not entirely new to the Jamaican landscape going back to school. Of concern, though, is the alarming increase in back to school supplies when we compare it year after year over year. It's about a 25% increase. The marketing companies and the traders of back to school supplies have really increased their prices. Some have blamed it on logistics. Some have blamed it on the supply chain, the demands that have increased over the period. But we have noticed that each year, just at the end of July, going to August, there's an increase in snacks and juices going into the summer, and that is all because of the expected demand for back to school. But we noticed that because what is real, it's not anyway a surprise, is that it takes about $1,500 per day to send a child to school. That's $7,500 per week, $30,000 a month, and $280,000 for the year. So if you have 3 kids in school, when you're a single parent, It's going to be very difficult, despite the fact that you have the PATH program and other programs to mitigate against it. It is expensive. And then the average to go back to school this year with back-to-school supplies is just about $50,000. For secondary school, it's going to be a little more than that. And then there's, of course, the school fees to be paid. And we encourage parents to pay the school contribution because it goes towards other areas in the schools that normally the government would cover. For example, labs and specialized teaching. Sometimes the school have to pull that from the contribution of parents. Another concern is the transportation of our children to and from school on public transport. Oftentimes, they're exposed to the elements, and the elements here meaning the lewd music that is played, the conversations that are had with parents, with adults amongst our children, and sometimes open violence our children are exposed to in these public transport and the transport centers where they have to be picked up. And so we had asked them last year and the year before if a deliberate, dedicated bus service could be done for our children, rural and urban areas, to take them to and from. And we do understand the constraints, but it is a concern going into another new school year where we will have less downtime with our children traveling to and from. Additionally, they'll be more comfortable and composed going into the class. Our last check showed that it takes about half an hour to 45 minutes for a child to settle down when they come off public transport. And it takes them another hour or so when they reach home to really get settled in because of the rush and the push and the boring that they have to go through to traverse our to and from school. It's a bit too much. We're talking about 2 hours a day to really settle in. And that's 2 hours of student-teacher contact time. So that is a concern. One other thing that we would like to say for the new school year is as we go along, the government and the ministry continues to do what they are doing, and we applaud them for it. They did very well last year, I think, with conflict resolution in schools and teaching how to reconcile and to forgive and forget and move on. The program started, and we hope that it doesn't stop, that it increases, because we have seen where it has worked in some schools where you had flare-up of the violence. The guidance counselors are working. We wish and hope that we could be given more guidance counselors in schools. So you have a school with 1,700 students with only 2 guidance counselors. It really needs more. And so that investment is really needed because some of our children are come from broken situations, and school is the oasis in the desert for them in a lot of ways. And one of the ways that it's an oasis is when we can sit and speak to persons who understand their issues and are able to guide them as best.
May I ask, Mr. Jacobs, the issue of the school charges? Yes. I don't know if you've surveyed it or based on the number of different people who've told you about those charges, if you're in a position to give our listeners an idea of how much they would have increased year over year.
You mean what the school is asking?
Yes, for instance, I know a couple corporate area schools have put maybe $10,000-$15,000 on the charge. So last year, if it was $50,000, it's $66,000 this year. If it was $54,000 last year, it's now $74,000. That kind of thing.
The average that I'm hearing is 7 to 10% based on our check, 7 to 10%. But most schools will encourage a payment plan. Most schools will encourage that you pay it over that period. Because, and we at the MPPAJ, we encourage our parents to pay it, because the $1,700, the $17,000 per year that the government gives to public schools for a child, and for those on the PATH program, I think it's 19,000 is not enough. If you want to have good labs, if you want to have good, well, let me say good, better labs for our physics, chemistry, bio programs, you have to have additional fund coming in to buy the chemicals, the utensils to be used, all the apparatus that are used to impart good lab techniques to our children. You need that. Additionally, you have specialized teachers that you have to bring in to deal with certain area of the curriculum that the ministry does not cover. And so the school wanted to ensure the best for their students. They are going to go and get these specialized teaching.
Yeah.
And then there are extracurricular activities that our students and parents benefit directly from it, because when the child does well at extracurricular, then they are exposed to scholarships. If the school doesn't have those programs going, then you are denying a child from getting those exposure. So the school contribution is very important.
Yes.
And we encourage it.
I know your predecessor did some work, he and his executive, Everton Hannam, where
Yes.
the issue of requiring parents to buy these textbooks that never saw the light of day. You buy them, throw them down, and I mean, maybe from you were going to school, Stuart Jacobs, you had textbooks bought by your parents that you never used because it just never came up. And I know that there was a pushback against this. Has there been any success in that regard, so that that part of the burden can be eased off parents buying books that the children are not going to use over the school term?
It still exists. It still exists, and one does, and it bothers anyone that you go and you purchase these expensive books, and the child doesn't use it. And I said to parents, when you reach the third week of this school term, and the book has not been used, then you have to have that conversation with the school administration. I would say just start with the school teacher or the subject teacher. Start with the subject teacher and ask what is happening, and she just might say, look, we won't be using it until next week because we have been using that to build up to this for the chapter in the book, so you don't take any assumptions. But and if you get nowhere there, then you go to the school administration, which is the principal or the vice principal. Usually, you go to the principal, the vice principal, who is responsible for academics in the school. But you want it should never happen that you take it for granted. And this is where, if parents are being astute in following up what their children are doing on a daily basis, then at the end of the school year, you shouldn't be seeing a book unused, because you would have been quite abreast of what is happening to your child, each subject area. And so it is not to be confrontational when you speak to the teacher about it. Be very calm, be very professional about it, and simply ask the question. And if the question isn't being answered, even administration, then you could bubble it up to the NPTAJ for we to look at it for you in a different light through the ministry.
Another time, Stuart Jacobs, we'd invite you to talk about this very issue. You speak about the school charges, which I'm going to join you this morning, encouraging parents to pay. The issue of students at schools where there are no specialist teachers in the areas, especially those preparing for exams, and the school then has to find professionals. You might find an engineer to teach some math. You might find somebody who works in the sciences to do a little chemistry or a little physics to help out, and those have to be paid for because the ministry won't pay for that. So the school has to dip into, as they say in the streets, dip in a chiss, Mr. Jacobs, to get that done, and that's why the school charges being paid are vitally important. But another morning for that, because we're out of time.
Yeah. All the best.
Thank you very much. The president of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica. Very important organization. Yeah, parents, you have to pay attention.